Hello everybody, my name's Ariel Maharukan, and for the 5th lab in Physics 133 of the semester, we're going to be testing latent heat. Alright, so for this experiment we actually need quite a few supplies at home. We need a freezer, a pot, stovetop, and water. But the supplies that are included in our lab kit are, of course, the thermometer, the test tube, the beaker, a pipette to measure some water, and then our thermometer case. And of course, I have my lab sheet that, as always, I write all of my answers out and I write out all of my tables. I got my pre-lab questions, my tables, and then my post-lab answers that continue onto the second page. But basically, for this lab, I have my computer obviously in front of me that has all of our lab procedures and then all of our lab materials on it. But basically for this experiment, we're gonna measure out some water with our pipette. I keep my water in here in my coffee labeled cup, but that's water. You pour the water into the beaker, or I'm sorry, you pour the water into the test tube. You stick the thermometer in it. Make sure the thermometer stopper is labeled at the -10. Then you stick that in there. Oh, this was frozen earlier, but for my explanation, I'm gonna stick it back in the freezer. So you stick that back in. Go in. Okay. You're gonna stick that in, and then you're gonna put this whole thing in the freezer. The reason we're putting it in a beaker is to make sure the test tube is sitting up straight. So we're just gonna walk this over to my freezer with all my frozen fruit. I like to make smoothies. But anyway, we put this in the freezer, and then we close, and we wait either up to an hour or until the thermometer says -5 degrees Celsius. And then based on our table, we're gonna take the beaker out once it's -5 degrees, and then we're gonna record the times and what temperatures they were and record our observations. As for the heat aspect of our lab, let's walk over to my stovetop right here. This is just gonna be a little kitchen tour, but that's okay. You're gonna take your pot and you're gonna fill it halfway with water, and then you're gonna turn your stove on. I already did this experiment, so I'm gonna leave the stove top off, but you're gonna turn it on and wait for the water to boil. That's when it bubbles up, it boils. And when it boils, you're gonna take the thermometer and stick it in the boiling water. And you're gonna do it when it starts to boil, and then after 5 minutes of it boiling. And then we're gonna record our temperature of that. And that's pretty much the experiment. It's not too complicated, which is nice. Very, very simple. You just need to keep an eye on the thermometer. You need to keep an eye on the boiling water. Make sure you turn off the stove when you're done. And that's pretty much it. The biggest issue I could even really see with this experiment is having these supplies for it, like the pot and the stove top and that sort of thing. But you know, most people have those kinds of materials. The main concept that we learned is that when you take solid water, when you take ice and you take it out of the freezer and you put it at room temperature, slowly but surely it's gonna get closer to room temperature until it ultimately melts, becomes water, and then reaches that room temperature. And then with the boiling water, we learned that when you stick the thermometer in the boiling water, the temperature When it's boiling, it doesn't really change once it hits boiling. My result was consistently about 102, 103 degrees. And the reasoning behind that is because if the water got any hotter, it would then transform into vapor. It would change its shape of matter. So yeah, that was pretty much the experiment. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you for listening to my video. Bye-bye.